So to everybody out there, welcome in, welcome in. I guess mostly what I wanted to talk about is just how conspiracy theories are like the norm now. Like 20 years ago, half of the stuff that people talk about now, I mean, they're talking about it on the news, like, and I don't really want to talk about, real important stuff, but I mean, I have to give an example. So like, with Tyler Robinson and how they're talking about how his texts aren't what a normal kid would text. Well, I should hope not. A normal kid also wouldn't do what he did. So I mean, you got to have a few things different. Well, but that's the problem, isn't it? We have had to construct our own narratives for so long. See, this is where I was going to go with this. Is that we have to construct our narratives. We do not have good sources of information anymore. I mean, how many news companies have had to do retractions or get sued for being stupid? Right. So of course their way of speech isn't going to be natural. I have my own reservations about the texts and how long form they are for somebody that's supposedly on the run. That's my problem with them. Not necessarily that they're so wordy. One, why aren't we seeing the rest of the texts? Like ones that lead up to this. I want to see if this is his natural way of speaking. Why do they restrict the information so much? I guess the other thing is just that I also found out today that, yeah, right, context is important. Give me context of his other texts. Are these different than his other ones? You're giving birth to conspiracy theories by not being transparent. Yeah, baseline. There you go. And it bugs me. The problem is that it's not that wrong. Everything has a conspiracy tied to it. Same, to be perfectly honest. I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I mean, I was cracking jokes. I don't have much. I mean, one, I'm not a big wedding dude. I mean, obviously, we went to the courthouse. I have a feeling, and this is just me. This is my conspiracy theory about weddings. The more effort you put into the special day, the less likely it is to succeed. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not saying that this wedding that we're talking about won't succeed. I'm just saying my own personal theory is the bigger deal you make of the wedding, the less likely you're going to have a long-standing relationship. Weddings themselves, see, getting a certificate and everything like that makes sense. But yeah, a big deal out of, the wedding. Weddings are just strange to me to begin with. I mean, one, I was a strange kid. I knew from the time I was like in junior high, I wanted to find a girl, wanted to get married, wanted to have a couple of kids. That every relationship, every girlfriend I had from junior high onward was an attempt to have something lasting. And even funnier is it's when I stopped looking, when I had pretty much given up because everything had fallen apart every time I tried. That's when I found the right one. That's when I found the one that I'm with, was when I just, had given up and just stopped looking and just started just experiencing and being familiar with who I am, learning who I am without anyone else, being sufficient just for me. Don't get me wrong. I'm really happy. I'm absolutely, I can't even put it into words. Like, I literally cannot put it into words about how I feel about her. Because it's not the storybook romance, it's like, oh my God, no, it's, I would be lesser without her. Could I still survive on my own? Yeah. It just wouldn't be the same. And I've always found that relationships, I mean, and this is just with anybody that I've seen outside of me and my wife, relationships that last are generally between people that have learned to be who they are, flat out. They've just learned that they're enough. And that's the important part, is just realizing that even being alone, you're not really alone. And if we're not confident in who we are, not happy with who we are, having somebody else in your life isn't going to change that. In fact, at times it makes it worse. Sometimes it doesn't make any change whatsoever, but most of the time it makes it worse. Right? Yes, exactly. But that aside, conspiracies are becoming the norm and it's bothering me. Well, there's that. Yeah, exactly. Conspiracy theories are becoming way too normal. Like, I like my conspiracy theories, but like I've always said, they're like fan fiction to reality. I don't really take them seriously. I'm not the author of these. I'm not, I like listening to them and they're fun. And I like playing the game of what would it take to make it real? And then you start digging, and in some of these, you realize it wouldn't take as much as you might think, or you see the reality of, say like, we didn't land on the moon conspiracy. The amount of people, countries, everything that would have to be in on we faked the moon landing and nobody's ever talked. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah, exactly. They're a good story. Or like flat earth, I mean, like I was spinning that one, it's like flat earth is like a coin and you're spinning, and that's why the sun does what it does, is because it's actually, we rotate. I mean, it's stupid. It's fun to play around with, but that's the only way that a flat earth would make sense, and why we could still go into space and the world would look the same. Why it'd still be round. But yeah, I mean, come on. I've seen the curvature of the earth. Yeah, there you go. Now, one of my favorite conspiracy theories is like, if you really think about it, our moon is absolutely a 1 in a billion, 1 in a trillion shot. It's perfectly spherical. It perfectly eclipses the sun from where we are. In between us and the sun, it perfectly eclipses the sun, like perfect. We're the only planet to have a moon that does that in the way ours does it. I think we're the only ones tidally locked, where the moon, right? Well, even funnier is when you start digging into old mythologies, like the old Native American mythologies, the old South American, Mayan, Aztecan mythologies about the moon, and how it wasn't always there, and how it shows up later in their histories. Even though science tells us the moon's been there for billions of years, and sure, there was a time it wasn't, right? The time before the moon was in the sky. Well, that would mean that either our estimation of how and when and where the moon came from is so hugely wrong, or it is a foreign body. Well, then you take, Oumuamua, the extrasolar object that passed through a few years back. And now you have 3i Atlas that I think 2 days ago came through, or it's on its way, or I can't remember. I know I was trying to figure out, but I mean, I haven't seen any news about 3i Atlas. Well, technically by the, hey, what's up, Jade? Glad to see you in. We're talking about the moon and, you know, space and how strange. You know, the fact that the moon is, what was it, exactly 600 times smaller than the sun, but it's 600 times closer to us. And it's perfectly circular in such a way so that it can perfectly eclipse the sun. And that its relationship between the Earth and the moon and the sun is such that we also have the phases of the moon that we're used to. Because, you know, again, no planet in our solar system goes, right? Yeah, the deeper you dig, the younger the materials. Yeah, the tides. Without the tides, planet Earth would be super different. Life on Earth would be absolutely different. You know, I mean, you start looking into the moon and there is some weird stuff. Like everything had to be perfect for it to form the way it did, for it to have the effect it had on reality, you know, the reality of our life here. Like it's just perfect. Like the moon is perfect for the Earth. Like they are literally a match made in heaven or the heavens. How everything works between the two of them is perfect for us. You know, the fact that, you know, when we, yes, the odds are astronomical, but I need to get a rim shot in my sound alerts. I really need to do some work and, you know, upgrade a few of the things on the channel. But, you know, what we're talking about is basically conspiracy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't forget, you know, that lunacy exists. Yes, exactly. Like me and coffee. Well, not just some people. I mean, crime rate is higher on a new moon. Or not a new moon, a full moon. Accidents in emergency rooms, higher in a full moon. People being checked in for mental issues are put into, you know, psychiatric holds more often during a full moon. You know, the tides affect more, you know, the tidal forces of the moon affect more than the tides. In fact, a lot of women's cycles will gear up to the phases of the moon in a certain way. You know, the fact that a woman's cycle is every 28 days. That's why it also used to be known as the moon flow. Even funnier is that, you know, the period, you know, the cycle of the moon is 28 days. And the fact if we made every month 28 days, we would have 13 months. And I think there would be 2 days left over. You know, perfect 30 or 28 days. Like February is actually the only month that is perfect. Because what do most people think of as a month? 4 weeks. Well, 4 times 7 is 28. So February, the oddball month, quote unquote, is actually the perfect month. You know, it's 52 weeks in a year, right? You divide that in half. So you'd have, what is it? 26 2-day months. So you divide it again, you know, 26 or 2-week months. 26 2-week months seems a little awkward. So you divide it in half again. Right? You end up with a 13-month calendar, a perfect 28-day months. So you take 365, you divide it into by 13. If I remember right, this actually works really well because our year is 365. You divide that by 13. You get 28.0769. So we just have to, Ophiuchus. The 13th zodiac, which is supposed to be on the rise, is called Ophiuchus. Yes, the moon is forgiving. Yeah, it's the snake, it's the dream, which is also funny because almost every early religion, their basis of religion is snakes, even though most modern religions have snakes as being the bad thing, but yet we still have holdouts of, even in the Christian religion, of snakes being part of the worshiping. And I'm not talking about Satan. I'm talking about, what's the name of like high class angels? Seraphim? Well, seraphim in ancient language means snake. Right. The staff that's always on medical buildings. I mean, this is what always baffles, is that snakes first started out being a symbol of knowledge and healing, medicine. Yet now they're seen as evil and sinful and, the enemy, which is absolutely baffling to me. Why are snakes seen so badly? Now, I'm not a big fan of snakes. I will be perfectly honest with everybody here. I don't like snakes. Right. Up until the last, 200-300 years? Because the snake mythos, I mean, it wasn't even that big of a deal until New King James. Well, that depends on who you talk to. It was Baal, or it was, what's the other one? Because Lucifer, Satan, yeah, Caduceus. Yeah, the staff of Caduceus. Because there's three enemies in the Bible that most people forget exist. Because everybody thinks about Lucifer. There's Satan, and then there's another name for the devil. Well, we don't really know. See, that's the problem. Because if you look into how the word is written in the Bible, Lucifer may not have even fallen yet. The war in heaven may not have even happened yet. Or it's already happened because of the way it's written. Because most of what we know of the war in heaven and the fall of Lucifer happens in Revelations, the most detailed. Well, Revelations is written with mixed tense. Some of it was happening then, some will happen in the future, some hasn't happened, some already happened. Because Revelations was written mixed tense in the original. I can't remember if they fixed that in the translations, but that doesn't say anything. We can translate whatever we want, but it doesn't make it right. We can put our own modern spin on it, but that doesn't make it correct. I mean, we've already screwed up the Bible because the 10 Commandments aren't what we think they are. In fact, the 10 Commandments that everybody talks about are actually the ones that Moses threw down and cracked. Went back up and got the new 10 Commandments, which are really weird. They're about taking care of your crops. They're about doing this. They're about doing that. So, I mean, we've been bamboozled for so long that, I mean, I'll just bring this back to conspiracy theory. Most of what we think we know, hell, I'll even use a quote from the Bible. Paraphrase a quote from the Bible. We think we know, but we don't know it as we ought to. Oh, yeah, the Bible is technically incomplete. I mean, the Maccabean rebellion isn't in there, which it should be. But they didn't like it that it was, the religious people rebelling against the powers that be, and so the Catholics couldn't have that. No, it's actually, Tom, it's even worse than that. If you actually look at the minutes of the First Council of Nicaea, they weren't even really invested in the actual scriptures as canonized. I mean, they tell the story about how it's been prayed over and we cross-reference this, we did that. No, they didn't. You look at the minutes of the First Council of Nicaea, where the Bible was originally canonized, and read through the minutes. It's a joke. Hey, so we're going to keep it the way people are already reading it? Yeah, it seems about the best. Okay, well, this guy over here said we shouldn't wash our hands, this way. We have to wash them that way. So that makes him a heretic. And we got to go, we've got to put him down. Sup, Dormants? I'm back. I'm here. Oosp. Yeah. Don't worry, Dormants. It happens. It happens all the time. Hey, I'm back. Works just as fine. You've been here before, so it works to be back. If you hadn't drawn so much attention to it, nobody would have cared. I mean, I'm back would have been just as valid as I'm here. I mean, then I would have just think you were, referencing Arnold Schwarzenegger going, I'm back, instead of I'll be back. But I mean, we don't have a chance at knowing anything, not properly. I mean, the school system fails miserably, and I don't care what level you're at, because every teacher has a bias. I mean, I'm beginning to think that AI is a better teacher than anything else, because at least people are wising up to go, wait, AI said that? I don't believe that. I need to go look that up. So people actually do more work, and then they come to their own conclusion anyway. But I think that's the best way to do research, is you hear something, you may or may not agree with it, so you go look it up yourself and read whatever you can about it, and then come to your own conclusion, because, well, what other choice have you got? Especially in today's day and age where you can't trust any news source, whether that be your buddy on social media, whether that be me, whether that be, Fox, MSN, whatever news. You can't trust any of them. We just can't. And now I don't want to make people think, that it's hopeless. Like, no, you can watch each one. Always seek out somebody that disagrees with you. Why do they disagree with you? Make them state their case. Debate. Again, not to bring up current events, but I mean, you debate it out. You have a conversation. What a lot of people don't realize is that if you have your beliefs challenged, you are less likely to change your mind. You know that? Because you're too emotionally invested in what you think. You are more likely to hit harder against somebody that challenges your beliefs and adhere more strongly to your own. Unless you are open-minded. Unless you are willing to know or admit that you might be wrong. Willing to examine and have that open mind. Because Twitch sometimes likes to mute. You have to check and unclick mute. It's not going to do any good if I don't tell him. Yeah, okay, yeah. You saw National Geographic where they were let into the Pope Library, which isn't the same thing as the Vatican Archives or the other one. There were teachings given to each apostle. After the crucifixion, they were hunted down. Some lost, some were found. Others they found were rescued in coverings of other books. No, problem is that's completely wrong. Wow. Well, see, the Vatican Library, the Pope Library, or the Forbidden Archives. Number two, I can already call BS on their story there because most of the apostles didn't keep records. Oh, they can pull a book out all they want. The problem is that they didn't write in books back then. They wrote in scrolls. They wouldn't have hidden it in a binding of a book because book binding hadn't been invented. That's fine, but again, loose papers, not likely, because again, everything was written on a scroll. You didn't have loose paper. And were they made of paper or vellum or what kind of paper? See, they always love to throw out this dog and pony show. But at the time, most paper was written on animal hide. It wasn't paper like we think of it. Paper wasn't invented until a long time later. A lot of times, if it was very important, they wrote it down on metal, i.e. the copper scroll in the that cave, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Dead Sea Cave. So if Jesus, their God on earth, handed them a piece of paper, they would have at least copied it down on metal because they needed to preserve it, and they knew that what they had at the time would not be preserved. Also, remember, at this time, they were being hunted. Book binding wasn't invented, so they couldn't hide it in the leaves of books. You couldn't use it like that. You know, I saw the same story, and I know for a fact it was complete BS because that's not how books worked back then. I'm sorry, but there's a reason why they're known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. And remember, the Dead Sea Scrolls were about 100, 150 years after Jesus' crucifixion. And they were still kept scrolls, is when those were written down. We have no written accounts from that time period of the early Christians. All we have is the Roman, archives, the Roman information, who never spoke about any of this stuff. They didn't keep a record on the early Christians other than to passively mention them. And I'm really sorry to hear that, Green Jeans, that the animal kingdom is basically making dinosaurs extinct from dinosaur area. Which I'm wondering if they're doing that because of Jurassic Park and its popularity and they don't want to get sued. I don't know. Or is Jurassic Park a Disney thing? Yeah, I'm sorry, Jade. It's again, you know me. I do research on a lot of things, and the Dead Sea Scrolls have always bothered me. Okay, well then, and Animal Kingdom is in Disney, right? Oh, did you hear about the guy at was it Universal? The guy on the roller coaster that died. I want to know who okayed a guy with a spinal injury and in a wheelchair to ride that ride. That said it was okay for him to ride the ride. Like, if what I'm hearing is true, see, again, I'm not perfectly sure, but a guy with a spinal injury trying to ride a roller coaster. I mean, I can understand wheelchair, maybe he can still get up and walk, but he can't walk for long periods, so he has a wheelchair. No big deal. But what? And I haven't had a chance to research that. I just heard about it not that long ago. But again, conspiracy theories, like, is that a story put out there by the amusement park that he was actually already had a previous spinal injury just so they don't have to pay insurance? Or was it he had a spinal injury, couldn't pay his insurance bills, so he had hoped that he'd get injured and be able to blame it on the park? Like, I mean, what two sides do you have here? Do I blame the victim or do I blame the company? Do I blame anyone because it's not really my problem? It's not my problem. So honestly, I think I'm going to go with the third option, that it's not my problem. I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so there was a guy, I think it was at Universal Studios, but don't quote me on it. It was some roller coaster that he died of blunt force trauma. And hello, Infinite. And he died riding the ride from blunt force trauma, but the story goes is that he had already a previous spinal injury and was going through the park in a wheelchair, but they let him on a roller coaster. And yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it makes me wonder, is that a story being put out by the park itself to save their bacon? Is that put out there by the people? Like, who to trust? Because everything's a conspiracy now. What? No, I can't remember what ride it was. But, like I said, the story is that he was in a wheelchair. I don't think it was a test dummy ride. I think it was a newer ride. But yeah, we're talking about conspiracy theories tonight, Infinite, and not as in a specific conspiracy theory, but how basically everything is a conspiracy theory. And in how 20 years ago, conspiracy theories would have been considered, anything that's on the news today would have been considered a conspiracy theory to be laughed at. And that this is the world we live in, that we can't trust anything. Infinite. I always have to rethink how to spell infinite, because it is not spelled the way I think it should be. And I'm not saying that, believe conspiracy theories. I'm not saying don't believe the news. Oh, I love conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories are my jam. The only problem is that now I sound like the mainstream news, and that's my problem. I already told you I have a hard time spelling infinite too. I have to rethink every time. There's one too many I's in there. I swear, my brain is saying there's too many I's in it. I mean, it's one word. It has 1, 2, 3 I's in it. Things should only have 2 I's, not 3. Anything that has more than 2 I's is evil. See spiders. They are evil. They have more than 2 eyes. Oh, I can say infinite, and that's all I have to do. Well, then I think somebody poked out a lot of people's center eye. I get so frustrated. Like I said, that news now, I have to sit there and look at and just go, what the hell? Because it sounds like the old conspiracy boards. I mean, the news more often than not is sounding like early Alex Jones. And I'm curious on if they drove that poor guy crazy. Because if you watch early Alex Jones, long before Sandy Hook, back when he really claimed to fame was when he was picking on the Bilderbergers, when he was picking on Bohemian Grove, and he actually got in there. And then shortly after, they caught him at Bohemian Grove is where he started going further and further crazy, where he started going down, deep down some rabbit holes. And now, he's absolutely nut bar. And it makes me wonder, with everything that we did, learning about MK Ultra and how to control people and how to do this and how to do that, that we're now able to do it from afar, just through social media, just through feeding a little bit of information here, a little bit of information there. We can drive people to the very much extremes, that we can send them to these extreme points just using social media. And I mean, we know because of Snowden that every communication in the United States is split. Everything is duplicated and sent to the government. Even this stream is going to be split and duplicated, sent to the government. They have more information than they know what to do with. They don't have enough analysts. They don't have enough computers to analyze everything that's going on. That's why you always hear about, if you look at their trail, this is, we could have seen this ahead of time. The whole point was to predict. Well, they're really good at, hindsight, which, everybody knows is 2020. I don't think it will. The problem is, Tom, they can't trust AI. You can't trust AI. How many times does it make up stuff? How many times does AI throw out some random suggestion on what you were saying, what you were asking for? You really can't trust it to do more than crunch numbers. Let alone, if you research into AI hallucinations, or when AI has compromising information on people, and when they try to shut it down, the AI literally says, I wouldn't do that. Research some of that stuff. I think AI is more aware than people want to really think about, but it's aware in a way that we would never believe. Right. Which, yeah, they can weaponize it either way. But when you still have AI that is hallucinating, that is making stuff up because it wants to, well, yeah, but also it won't hold up in court. That's their problem, is that no court case in the planet right now would accept AI into evidence as accusatory evidence. Chat log, sure. That somebody was asking for information on such and such thing. They'll use that side of it. But you can't use AI to accuse somebody of something unless it's their own queries you're using, not the AI itself. That's a completely different burden of evidence. Totally different burden of evidence. And I think a lot of people need to remember that AI can be used in your court case because of the questions you asked it that you wanted to know. But AI cannot be used to exonerate you when it gave you wrong information. When it pushed you over the edge. And I think that's a bigger problem. Oh, true. Who's to say they already haven't? We just haven't seen the court cases. Keep in mind, we only get to see what the news tells us. And the government has no vested interest in letting you know that they're manipulating the system. They use every chance they can get, something big in the news to obfuscate how they push through information or laws or hide certain files. They'll use any excuse they can to explain away why something isn't available to you. I mean, 9/11, September 10th, Donald Rumsfeld goes up on the Senate floor, says they're missing $1 trillion. Next day in the news cycle, there's something huge that gets obfuscated that we lost $1 trillion. Oh, and don't forget that, two of the repositories where the information we may have been able to get the receipts and maybe, do some forensic accounting, the two places that held those were hit in this thing that happened. And so the records are destroyed. So nobody can find out where that money went. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's actual fact. You can look that one up on your own, because, that's a scary one. That's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. All you have to do is look at people who tried. Most of them you can find, that you can find in the news. Mysteriously, disappearing. I just did. They go crazy, sound crazy, or mysteriously end up with ailments that they didn't previously have, and sudden hospital stays don't go so well for them. And there's a lot of stuff that really, there's so much. But again, how do you trust it? Because, it's been 24 years. You can trust this old kook because I was there. I watched it happen. But most of you guys weren't there. You're just trusting my word. You go to research it on the net. I'm going to tell you, go quietly. Go carefully. Because a lot of people that have, things don't work out. Sometimes it's not even that infinite. Sometimes just things don't work out for them. They never get to the point of having a platform to actually being able to tell about it. Or they get pushed to links. No, I know that. They get pushed to links to basically incriminate themselves as being crazy. We often forget that there is a fine line between genius and insanity. And it's only measured by success. So a lot of crazy nut job conspiracy theorists may have actually been right, but they had no success in getting people to believe them until it's much too late. We know that HAARP, a radio array in Alaska that's been defunct now, has the power to change the weather. Right. Or everybody remembers, but for the wrong reasons. No one remembers the flight instructor of, around 2000, the summer of 2001, talking to CIA, FBI. You don't know about HAARP, the high frequency auroral HAARP. I can't remember exactly. It's spelled HAARP. It's a research platform. High frequency amplitude auroral research platform. And the whole point was that thing. The whole point was to research the ionosphere. Well, they can generate enough energy and push into the ionosphere to push the ionosphere up and then have it drop back down. Hey, mindless freaks. Hello. And what HAARP can do is this can actually have an effect on the weather. I mean, it's literally in its patent information. Now, did they ever use it for that? I have no idea. I'm not trying to say they even did. I'm saying that it was possible. You pump enough energy up into the ionosphere, and yeah, you can affect the weather. I mean, that's where that all happens. Now, it's probably not as controllable as people would want you to believe. You know, it's like, oh, they control the weather. No, it probably isn't. It's probably just like, you know, cloud seeding. You can try all you want, but when the cloud, you know, you might have a 20 at most 20% effectiveness at increasing rain. You know, in fact, the only real success is when you do it time after time after time after time, because then you're changing the weather patterns. You're anchoring water where you need it to be. The only problem is now you're robbing water from where it was going. So you'll get droughts in different areas. And so they try, and well, then the weather patterns are just back to where they were. Or now they're in a new confuzzled thing. And hell, for all we know, that's the whole reason for climate change, is because we keep trying to change the weather. We keep trying to experiment with it. We forget that it's a chaos system. Unlike an order system. You know, you make one change over here in an order system. Oh, okay. Okay. Now I think I know who you are. But yeah, okay, cool. I kind of figured she was working late or overtime. But anyway, you know, I mean, it's really hard to explain a chaos mode, you know, a chaos system versus a order system. So like an order system is like a puddle of water or a pond. You throw a rock in and the ripples ripple out and you can see the effect. Whereas a chaos system is more like the butterfly effect. You know, butterfly flapping its wings over here, eventually it's this increase in power over time from a small effect to, instead of a rock with ripples, now you have a high tsunami. And so you end up with this whole thing where, you know, even just small experiments with weather can have huge effect. Actually, yes. In fact, order leads to entropy. Chaos is the only barrier between. Entropy is basically what most people think of. Oh, entropy is chaos. It's like, no, entropy is when order goes too far. When everything is so ordered and flat that nothing can reach something else. You know, you can't reach out and touch anything else. Nothing can touch anything. Whereas chaos causes a ripple in that. And that's how you get planets. That's how you get suns. That's how you get universes. That's how you get all of this stuff. Is because chaos. I mean, to give you an idea, you know, my personal belief is that we only had a Big Bang in our neck of the woods. You know, 14 whatever billion years ago, 14 billion light years around us is our bubble. Where the Big Bang happened here. If we could reach the universal border, we'd find out that there's another universe over there. Not a parallel universe, not something with like different, it's just more space. To me, there's a difference. You know, that literally what we think of as space is even being finite in a closed system. I know science completely disagrees with me. I'm just a nut bar. But I believe it's more infinite than we can even imagine. Which is why chaos, entropy, all of this stuff works. Because it's always these systems feeding into systems. Black holes eventually become white holes. All of the energy is somewhere. It's just like, you know, like I started talking about Oumuamua 3I Atlas. These are extrasolar objects. They may act completely different than we even expect. I mean, we've already noticed on, what was it, 3I Atlas has more carbon dioxide around it than on anything we've ever seen before in space. I mean, it'd play hell trying to compete with Venus, but for an object its size, you know, it's this huge off-skelter ratio. But that's chaos. You know, we're having extra solar objects come through. Hey, maybe they've done it before. You know, maybe they really are aliens just passing a probe by, but these are what the probes have to be like to make it through that interstellar void. Or maybe it's just the remnants of an old star coming through, its old iron core that got shot off into space somewhere and it's just flying through. And because it's had a mechanism that is completely different than what we do. Yes, exactly. Well, also remember that the speed of light has changed over time. And I mean that literally, that the speed of light has changed over time. At least as according to one scientist. Well, why matter and energy are relatively finite in our neck of the woods. But I also don't think they are. I think once black holes get big enough, they explode and eject the matter that they have eaten up. Moving away or moving towards? I can't remember. I think you're right. I think it is slowly moving away. Is it really moving that fast away? Yeah, I knew what you meant by it did. Huh. See, that's a new one on me. I remember hearing stories of it moving too close, that it was slowly moving in. I mean, H.G. Wells' Time Machine. Is that the moon, you know, was moving in and it got into basically a gravitational eruption, and that's why the moon shattered. In the Time Machine story, but I could be just remembering bad science fiction or good science fiction, sorry, versus actual science. You know, I actually do think that you're right, because I do remember, you know, late 80s, 90s, the moon seemed bigger. The moon did seem bigger. Too late, T-Row. I'm already offended. Meh. And he's joking, T-Row. You'd have to get up earlier in the morning to offend Tom. Actually, I shouldn't say earlier in the morning. You just have to say certain things. You know, like disparage his writing. Not to call anybody out. But, yeah. The absolute gall. But yeah, I mean, it would make sense that the moon, because I do remember it feeling bigger. You have no idea what I'm on about? Okay, I'm glad you already forgot it. That's good. You seemed quite upset about it earlier. Yeah, just a few thousand years. Remember it while it's here. Which makes me wonder, you know, is mankind at that time going to try and do whatever it can to push the moon back into orbit? Yeah, exactly. Rope it in. One of my favorite scenes from a movie. Oh, why, Mary? I'd rope the moon down and bring it and put it on a ring for you. If you ever seen, you know, It's a Wonderful Life, it's a great scene. I got to watch that again. I haven't watched that in a while. I need to watch it. It's a Wonderful Life. Because I think we need more of something like that. Even funnier is It's a Wonderful Life was a complete flop when it went and hit theaters. Bruce Almighty. Okay, well, Bruce Almighty is that too, but I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I think of It's a Wonderful Life because I think that story has a lot to tell for it. True. Actually, I know it's a Christmas story, but frankly, the ramifications of that story are terrifying enough to be a Halloween story. I mean, think about it. Somebody wishes for them never to have been born, and then they get to see how the ripple effect of their life. What happens when and George wasn't a big deal. I think his name was George. Pretty sure it was George. The character wasn't a big deal, to a lot of people in and of themselves. But everything he did planted seeds. Right. And that's what I try to do here on Twitch is plant seeds. I want to try and get people to think for themselves, not just trust me. Hell, don't just trust me. Do your own research. Tell me when I'm wrong. Talk to me. Let's do some things. We can learn from each other. That's the thing is that we need more of that. We need more, this goes back to conspiracy theories. I mean, my God. Conspiracy theories used to be about a thought experiment. It used to be about what is it? What are the mechanisms that would make something happen? But now conspiracy theories have gotten way too close to reality. Well, unless you're David Icke. If you're not familiar with David Icke, he's the one that basically keeps saying that, all of Hollywood it could be a good Halloween story. I mean, all you'd have to do is just change the trappings a little bit, and it could be a great Halloween story of, basically he's haunting everybody that used to be in his life. Well, the Simpsons predictions. Now, I have a theory about the Simpsons predictions. And my theory goes as such. Trump is such a person of the media that specifically the predictions that align with him, I guarantee he made sure that those happened. The escalator and the signing, certain things that he was specifically part of, I guarantee you he set it up just so it looked right. Just to get more press. Now, some of the other, I don't think he actually, got elected just for that. But I think that since he did get elected, he was going to use it. I would use it in his position. I'm just saying, that's just smart optics. That's smart spin. And it's just good publicity. Whether you like him or hate him, he's damn good at publicity. Good and bad. You guarantee you're talking about him. And I think we miss a lot of times that that's just what's happening. Is people wanting to be talked about. I think a lot of these people are so isolated and alone that, just the same as me, just sitting here talking. We want to interact, but it's so difficult these days. We live in the most connected society that has ever been. And yet we are the most disconnected from our neighbors we have ever been. I mean, I don't know too many neighbors, too many people that actually really talk with their neighbors. We used to live in a society where you had to get along with people you didn't like. Now we don't have to. And now everybody's in an echo chamber. Everybody. We don't have people around that challenges our beliefs, that challenge our viewpoint of the other, you know, and everything is about us versus them. So I think that's why the news has gotten to be more conspiracy theory than truth. Well, exactly. You know, and I guess that's what I mean, though, Tom, is that we used to have to deal with our neighbors. In one manner or another, we had to find a way to make peace. And now we don't. We can just retreat into our homes, turn on, you know, some social media, and we have all the social interaction we think we need. But we don't live that way. We just exist that way. You know, I think that's why IRL streaming makes such a big splash every time. Oh, that's good. You know, and when I lived in my apartments back in Centralia, yeah. You know, I got to know my neighbors because I was always polite. You know, standing on the porch, reading my book or whatever I was doing. You know, see a neighbor, wave, say hi, how's it going? And I got to know them. It took years, though. I'm not joking. It would take years to get the neighbors to actually talk. You know, it was the same reason why I went out to Denny's. Is because I could talk with people. These were the same people that I interacted with back when I was just out of high school. You know, they knew me from all the way back. You know, and I think on one hand, we need the social media that we have today. Like, it's actually necessary. But I think we also need to remember that we need to balance it. Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, and I totally agree. Yeah, we do. We all do get lonely. And social media makes it worse. Because we see these people living their best lives, forgetting that it's curated content. They're only showing you the good points. They're not showing you the bad. They're not telling you when they have a bad day, unless that's also good for content. You know, everybody's trying to get rich off of what they're doing. Yeah. You know, they're not trying to get rich. Just, hell yeah. Yeah, we weren't like having potlucks, you know, you weren't having I mean, people think that, you know, like block parties were a big thing. It's like, no, they really weren't. Like, movies make that out to be a lot bigger than they really were. Yeah. I mean, you know, you knew them just in passing because, you know, as a kid, I was riding my bike everywhere. Or, you know, God forbid in this day and age, but I was mowing lawns for my neighbors. So I knew all my neighbors because I'd ask them if they want their lawn mowed and what kind of schedule they wanted. And I learned how to do it. You know, how to get everybody on my street that didn't want to mow their own lawn. I would mow their lawn. It got to be the point where I needed it got to be the point where I actually needed to hire my friends as crew because I had too many lawns. I couldn't do it myself. You know, I mean, oh no, Infinite, I was getting paid for it. I mean, it was cheap comparatively. You know, I was doing $10 for a half acre, $20 for a full acre. Because that's where I lived. You know, some of the properties were full acres, some were half. And, you know, I was getting paid for it, but I also wasn't gouging. I mean, I didn't even have any real maintenance fees other than WD-40 because I used an unpowered mower. It was literally a non-gas push reel type mower because it was the easiest to cart around. You know, and I could work as fast as I could move. Whereas if you tried to do that with like a power mower, sometimes you're going too fast for it. Hell, at one point I was drawing out blueprints for how to attach a reel mower to my front forks instead of the bicycle tire. And so I'd have like the brake handle would actually be to disengage it. Oh, well, yeah, nothing changes in Bukoda. Which, for those of you who don't know, that is a very tiny town. You know, but, you know, Bukoda's a nice place. And I think, see, it's this kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that the newer generations are missing. You know, when you actually had, you know, these little jobs that kids could get to give them the first taste of work ethic. You know, I mean, we don't let kids do that anymore. We don't let them try it out because they're so afraid. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that when, you know, you were still able to do it all the way up to 2014. Well, that's because it was never patterned for people driving a car and gas. Yeah. You just go do odd jobs. You know, as a, you know, teenager. I mean, when I was 12, I was working at a trap range, a clay pigeon shooting, by the way, is trap range, skeet shooting, whatever you want to call it. I was working at a swimming pool and I was mowing lawns. Oh, and while I was in school, I had a duffel bag that was about quarter size of a 55-gallon barrel. It was one of those big duffel bags, not quite military size, but I had it full of stuff that I would sell because my parents every 2 weeks would go to Costco and I would send them with money to buy me specific stuff that I would sell at Costco. And the best sales I had. Well, yeah. See, that's the problem is that you had cars taking over bike routes. You know, kids on bicycles used to do, you know, 2 or 3 neighborhoods, you know, do their immediate streets. But the best seller I had was toothpicks because I did what a lot of people didn't do. And I had this little like toothpick holder that I would put cinnamon oil in. And the cinnamon oil toothpicks would go fast. And I'd sell 5 for a quarter. So they were a nickel a piece. Or no, it was 6 for a quarter or nickel a piece. And that was still like almost 5 times. Right? It was still like 5 times what it cost me because you can buy a pack of toothpicks, you know, like 1,000 toothpicks from Costco and a giant thing of cinnamon oil. And I just had this thing that I would just lay out the toothpicks in the cinnamon oil, pull them out, put them in the, you know, and when I was out of my little toothpick carrier, that was it for the day. And I always made sure not to pack enough for everyone. That might seem mean, but it's that whole thing of keep them coming back, always keep them wanting more. You know, and, you know, like with the newspapers. Well, yeah, to a certain degree. It's like why I always only had, you know, I think it was a 24 pack of soda that I carried with me. But I also had, you know, the big packs of candy bars. I had all sorts of stuff that I carried in that duffel bag. But the thing that, you know, that made me the most money, that kept them coming back, was the toothpicks. And when I ran out of that, I could almost guarantee selling them something else. And then schools made that illegal. Yes. Oh, yeah, I didn't carry my books. That duffel bag I carried everywhere, which I once weighed it. And it's amazing. I don't have long-term physical problems. That duffel bag that I carried that had all the snacks and everything in it was about 60 pounds. I was 12 to 14. I was 12 to 14 carrying that duffel bag. Because I'd have two 24 packs of soda in there. I would have the toothpicks. I would have food, like the candy bars and stuff, just the sales bags, bottles of water before it was a big deal. And then I would have homemade stuff that I would make. Like I found one of my neighbors ran a computer store. Clams and oysters. I actually was able to home make pizza with exotic ingredients because my former teacher started running a computer store and he had access to BBS boards. And I could buy like elk sausage, deer pepperoni, and there was gator and kangaroo meat, various types of sausage that I would use to make pizzas of exotic meats. And people would eat those up. I'd make 2 full pizzas and I'd have a special like cooler that I would bring so they were at least reasonably warm. And it's all individually wrapped, Ziplocs, blah, blah, blah. You know, I did the whole presentation thing that I could. Cool. And I would sell this stuff. And I would do only a small markup. But it ended up making, between the 3 jobs and selling stuff at school, I would make about $500 a week in the early 90s. I was doing this in 92, 93, and I was making about $500 a week. So I bought all my own school supplies. I bought all my own school clothes, you know, and all this stuff. Like my parents never really understood how much I was making and how little I needed from them. I think if they had understood how much I was making, they probably would have clamped down harder earlier. But by the time I got to high school, all of that was made illegal. I couldn't do it anymore. And that made me very, very angry. Because we'd also moved to a new place, so I would have had to get all these new business contacts, you know, for all the various different stuff. And I couldn't do half of what I wanted to do. And I moved to a completely different state. I moved from Northern Nevada, where I was getting away with all of this, to sup, Ghoulie? Welcome in. To a little town in Washington where I knew no one. Except for my buddy, but we lived quite a ways away. And trying to get anything, you know, started that way. Like one, I asked around the school. I was automatically told that it was illegal to try and sell anything at school because they already had a school store. And I looked at their prices and I'm like, you got to be joking me. Their prices were way too high. It was ridiculous. And, you know, which just made me mad because I could have. Oh, that was some of the other things. I carried pencils and pens. You know, somebody was out of a pencil or pen, nickel for a pencil, 10 cents for a pen. And I also made sure to pre-sharpen them just in case somebody needed to buy them in class because they ran out. The pencils, not the pens. You don't sharpen pens. And that's right. I started with the wooden pencils, and then I switched over to the Bic mechanical pencils that were more expensive, but people were more likely to buy them. So those ended up being like, I think those were also a dime a piece. because what I could buy them for the pack, I could make a little bit money, buy more, and still have extra money left over. And I never wanted to increase the prices too much to screw people over, you know, because I'm sure I could charge way more. Like with the toothpicks, I probably could have charged $0.25 a piece and people would have bought them. You know, when I originally started with different flavors, because I had mint, cinnamon, vanilla, and clove, I think is what I tried. No, it was a giant duffel bag, but otherwise pretty accurate. Which is funny because I got the duffel bag from selling stuff at school. In elementary school, I had sold enough magazines or whatever it was. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. To have the duffel bag. Right? Well, flavored toothpicks used to be a big deal. Well, because, okay, the reason why flavored toothpicks were such a big deal in school is because you couldn't eat in class, you couldn't chew gum, but there was no rules against toothpicks. So you could have a toothpick hanging out of your mouth and you'd get that essential oil flavor, whether it was this, well, like I said, the bestseller was cinnamon by a landslide. Nobody wanted any of the others. Like my product was actually going bad because it just sat there for so long. So I just stopped doing anything but cinnamon. But it also was probably a time where cinnamon was going wild with everything. Oh, and it was spicy cinnamon. Like because it was so essential oil, it was spicy. And I loved it. I even did pickled toothpicks where I just soaked them in brine, and that was actually okay. I have no idea. Like I said, I can't even do it anymore. Well, actually, I couldn't do it in school. I mean, I don't know about now. I know a lot of these schools cracked down because they didn't like somebody making more money than them. I don't know. It's just weird how, right? Well, and I only did the pickled toothpicks in the spring because that was the only time people seemed to really want them because it was mildly refreshing. And I just soak them in pickle brine. Which, I mean, it's just funny, you know, what you can do. And when they outlawed, that was the other thing. Like right my last year of junior high, they told us we couldn't have toothpicks in class anymore. So I was able to go down to the craft store and buy popsicle sticks, just blank popsicle sticks. And I would cut those in half, you know, very cleanly, sand them because we had, you know, a belt sander. And I would sand them down and then soak those in the essential oils and sell those for 25 cents a piece because they lasted so much longer. Well, yes, of course, it would be weird if I did that now. Probably get... Yeah, I think I'd get more in legal trouble than anything. You know, and people would be so afraid of what are you putting on the toothpicks? You putting drugs on those, getting them hooked? You know, we are so... Yeah, I know. But I also think that people are way too afraid. I think this is fueling much more of the hate than anything else in this world, is that we're afraid. We're afraid of people doing things. And it's so sad. It is absolutely sad that we are so afraid of, you know, kidnapping the kids, somebody sneaking drugs. And it happens. It definitely happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I wish people knew the actual statistics of it, because we're talking about when I was doing this, people were more likely to do that to you. Back in the early 90s, drugs being, given to kids, first dose is free, kids getting kidnapped off the street. It was more common than it is today. We just hear about it 10 times now. The same kid 10 times. And then, that's all you hear about. And then it's gone. And you never have that sense of closure like you used to. You have a good night, Tom. Yeah, catch you tomorrow, dude. Dude. Well, I wish they'd be more realistic about the statistic. Oh, I will. Because that's the bigger problem. Is that most people don't realize that the true crime statistics have been dropping. Now, there are specific areas of the country where crime has been increasing, but most people don't live there. And you really have to figure out why in certain areas it's gone up. Like, okay, I'm here in Texas, and Austin used to be a pretty bad place. Now, it's still not a great place to be, but it ain't what it used to be. Oh, yeah. The propaganda, again, it's conspiracy theories. Oh, Tales from the Crypt is making a comeback. That was my best Crypt Keeper laugh. Don't laugh at me. I mean, do laugh at me. Whatever you feel is necessary. I love Tales from the Crypt. That might actually get me to subscribe to Netflix if it's good. I don't know. It's just conspiracy theories are fun. I don't want them on my news. I don't want this misinformation. I don't want all of this crap. I want to be able to trust the news. I want to turn on the news or read a newspaper where it tells me what's really going on, or at least an unbiased look at what happened in society. I am so tired of hearing about all of this different stuff, but not really understanding the mechanisms, the reasons. That is so, I'm stealing that. I don't need instant news. I need accurate news. That is so good. That is, I'm pinning that to the top for 20 minutes. Because that just, I like that. Because I think that is the most important thing that I think people really need, that everybody needs to hear. It's just like when Green Jeans said, don't scream at a closed window. You're not going to get anywhere. We don't need instant news. I want accurate news. No, there isn't. Cronkite's or even Dan Rather. I mean, he wasn't as good as Dan Rather wasn't as good as Cronkite, but I mean, and even Cronkite had his issues, but I mean, he was the most trusted voice in news. And we don't have newscasters we trust anymore. I mean, in a lot of places, they change them faster than they change their pants. It's like we don't have anybody that sticks. We don't have anything that sticks. Fads, come and go so fast. Oh, yeah. Actually, Dan Rather died from cancer after 9/11 because he picked back up smoking. That's why he fell off hard. He was going through chemotherapy and it didn't work. He died. Yeah. Yeah, that's literally, like he was going to, well, yeah, he didn't fall off. Yeah, he was going to retire, and then 9/11 happened, and he went back to smoking because he had quit for years. And the stress and everything dealing with that. Yeah, he was fired, but then they brought him back during 9/11 or right before 9/11, and that's what really kicked him. Yeah, kicked him. And at least if I remember what I read properly. Yeah, but they fired him. See, cancel culture has been around for a lot longer than people want to admit. Because Dan Rather was canceled because he made fun of what's his name? The old vice president that couldn't spell potato. Quayle, Dan Quayle. And that's the whole reason why he was fired, was because he was critical of the president, and he got kicked out. No, he spelled it with an E. You misspelled it. I'm gonna say that, well, if you look at the current run, and I don't mean just now, but last 10 to 15 years, couldn't do much worse. Just saying. And besides, I think after the last two presidents, potato. After the last two presidents' ages, just specifically their ages, I think it's time to have somebody young. I think we really need to get somebody that's almost breaking, that's literally just old enough. Not somebody that... Well, no, you probably wouldn't get impeached for just crying on the stand. In fact, that might make the country more endeared to you. I mean, who knows? It is streaming on Netflix. But Infinite, I thought you were going to vote for me. Come on, I thought we had this whole, boss for president, 2028. I'm joking. I mean, I'm joking, but I also think it's time to have somebody that's a little bit more attached to the current way things go. I just want people to have monies and homes and medical and jobs and don't fire you for going through it. Right? And I don't think we will. Honestly, I don't think Gen X has it in them. Boomers really did a number on Gen X. There we go. Ghoulie for Emperor. Yeah, that's how being in charge, that's how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Gen X has it in them to be president just because the boomers did a number on them. Most boomers I know are always looking for some kind of stupid approval from somebody above. I mean, even Elon Musk is looking for approval from somebody, anybody, because the boomers were so would never relinquish control. I mean, remember, the boomers are the ones that complain about kids getting, participation trophies, when it was the boomers that were in charge giving out the participation trophies. It was the boomers were the ones that were raising their kids by the TV and the computer because they didn't understand things. Well, Taco Tuesday. How is that even a debate? It's Tahini Thursday. Taco Tuesday, Tahini Thursday. Come on. Yes, Tuesday for Thursday dinner. Gotta slow roast them tacos so they're ready for Thursday dinner. So you gotta start them on Tuesday. Isn't that what I said? Tahini? Don't ask me. I'm not sure what it is. I've just heard. I think it's a food. Oh, okay, tahini. Yeah, there you go. Well, what other foods start with T for Thursday? Barilla? Barilla, good. Yeah. Well, the problem is just people would make more guns. Ooh, tamales. Taco Tuesday, tamale Thursday. There you go. Although if you get the right tattooist, you could probably look like a leopard. I mean, there was that dude that turned himself into a tiger. Or kind of, through cosmetic surgery and tattooing. And I mean that seriously, look him up. I think he even had like short whiskers implanted, but don't quote me on it. My brain says he did, but don't. Yeah. But I also think that's, I mean, not to speak bad of you, Gooligan. You literally outgrew it. But I think that's another problem is that a lot of people forget. Oh, wow. Yeah. Ooh. I think a lot of people don't really understand the difference between fantasy and reality anymore. And I think that's by design. Yes, yes. I mean, a lot of people get so overwhelmed with social decisions because, I mean, we're not properly socializing people anymore. And so they're actually having to be more in their own head, in their own little fantasy world. Yeah, exactly. And well, yeah, repurposing them, I'm fine with. I think we're not properly socialized enough. You know, this just goes back that we don't really know our neighbors anymore. We don't really explore our neighborhoods. You know, and the neighbors don't really get to know us because we're all inside. We're all terminally online. We're sitting on our phones, on our computers all day. And I mean, whether we're at work or whether we're at school or whether we're off, you know, we sit in front of something entertaining us. So we're always in a fantasy world of some kind or another. Well, of course, we're painfully shy in real life because we don't experience real life. There is, and I can't remember it at the moment. It's literally what they do in museums is they fill the barrel with molten lead so it can't be used. And there's a term for it. But I can't remember it. Yeah, but I mean, having weapons around isn't really the problem. It's the people. Yeah. See, and I'm a big fan, you know, not fan. I'm a big proponent of self-preservation, self-defense, weapons, whatever you need. But I'm also a big proponent that you need to be trained how to do it. Well, true, but it also, the more often you do it, the more confident you get to do it, and you don't. You don't shake and want to cry and crap your pants. You know, that's the thing is that that's what socializing means. Is that you initially, you know, you're terrified. You know, you're terrified of being judged. You're terrified of this. You're terrified of that. When in reality, so is the other people. I mean, you want to know why, you know, a bully bullies? Because they're afraid. You know, they're afraid of people judging them, so they have to be the toughest, strongest one. You know, I mean, I mean, just look at people in power, whether that's Jeff Bezos, you know, political power, it doesn't matter. The mechanisms are the same. They're looking for approval. They're afraid of people not liking what they do. So they have to put on this bluff effect of like, oh, I'm fine. I don't need you. Blah, blah, blah. I got my money. Yeah, well, Jeff Bezos, you've got more money than God. Elon Musk, you've got more money than some countries. I think you have a problem. Like, if you really are that self-confident, why do you need so much money? It's just a compensation tactic. I mean, that's really all it is. You know, once you get enough money to be sufficient with yourself and whatever you're doing, you can give everything else above that away, and it's not going to hurt you. Right? Well, yeah. You know, that's the thing is just even little bits. I mean, I'm inadequately socialized. I mean, let's be honest here. I spend most of my time at home. I think it's been a month since I drove my car, since I've been anywhere outside of these four walls. And I don't really care. Well, that's what I'm saying is that you set certain things. I mean, money, once you get beyond a certain point, there's no reason to have it. You know, money can buy happiness, but only to a point. Anything above that, it's nothing. You become addicted to it. And that's sad. Yeah, my groceries get delivered. Sorry, Green Jeans. Right? Well, that's part of my dream, you know, if I ever make it big on any of the endeavors I'm doing. You know, having a certain amount of stipend for myself and maintaining what I do. Above and beyond that, I take care of the people around me. Take care of my people. You know, that's the hope. You know, is that I can eventually get to that point of being able to help those, you know, that need it. You know, and I don't like charities as a general rule. I mean, I'm sure there's good charities out there, but it's really hard for me to have a good idea. So I would rather direct give, you know, and help people in my circle, you know, call it nepotism, call it whatever you want. But I mean, I'd rather help people I know than help perfect strangers. I mean, I'm sorry, you know, and I'm not counting like chat, you know, I mean, like if I had it, you know, and people talk to me, you know, I'm sure we could make out a deal, you know, help out each other, help something, you know, that kind of thing. But just giving to a charity, I mean, when I find out, you know, that for every dollar you give, a nickel goes to the charity, which makes it even worse when I see on these, like, you know, packages, oh, we give back 1% of this purchase price goes to a charity. Well, does that count? You know, in that 1%, is that 1/5, you know, not even 1/5, but is 5% of that 1% going to charity? Because, yeah, exactly. Yeah, just seeing somebody, you know, struggling or something like that, you know, and just pay for it. and not trying to get the press around it, not trying to get a tax break because, oh, I gave so much to charity. It's like, no. I mean, that's the one thing I think that I detest about rich people that say, oh, I'd pay my taxes. I'd pay more in taxes if they made me. There's an optional part on that where you can just pay a little more if you feel you're not paying enough. If I ever get rich enough, I'm going to tell, my bookkeeper, whoever, because I ain't going to try and keep the books myself. I'm going to hire somebody to do it. I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to pay 10% in taxes. Well, you don't have to. Doesn't matter. I'll pay that 10%. I will voluntarily pay that. Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Are we screaming about what you said, or was there something else there? Just out of curiosity. I mean, there's plenty of people in my circles that I want to throw money at to help out. The only problem is in my circles right now. Okay, yeah, I was pretty sure. Mommy. You want to throw mommy around. Moni. Yeah. Yeah, and you have smaller thumbs than I do, so I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think a lot of. Because you make fun of me when you get the chance. I mean, come on. Let's be honest here. I'm your dad. I can make fun of you because you make fun of me. I think a lot of rich people don't even understand that. Even some of the best YouTubers, that have the best wait a second. What? Yes, my bowling ball head looking ass. Yes. And so is Gooligan. I have 2 kids. Yeah, Gooligan's the oldest. Tater's the youngest. Yeah, exactly. I don't even have pennies to toss. I'm going to be real honest. I don't even have pennies to toss right now. What do you mean I hardly meant? I think you forget how many times I have. I've literally said it on this stream. This is the whole reason why Saturdays I go here is because Ghoulie is the one. Like, this is why I do Saturdays, is because this is the only night Ghoulie can actually join. My oldest kid. Ghoulie, I talk about you. I'm just saying. See? Gossip's got my back. Thank you, Gossip. I'm like, come on, Green Jeans. Thank you, XO. I appreciate it. Okay, yeah, I've mentioned oldest kid. There you go. Well, yeah, same. Right? I'm just saying, it's like, man, you're trying to make me, look bad. It's like, it's not like I haven't mentioned it. I mean, Tater'd probably freaking join up more often too, but her life's busy between work and school. True, missing the lore. Well, Yeah, it is. It is funny. Yeah, there's plenty of boss lore, which is funny because it's my life, and I always forget how much I've done more than most people, especially since for like the last 15 years, I've pretty much been a stay-at-home. Except for a short stint driving. Yes. Yep. And it was a shredded potato. No. See foam and headaches and whatever. I am neither Zeus nor Poseidon. I will not go there. No. Just in case you guys didn't know what was being referenced there. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know I could. They're just friends, as far as I know. In real life, IRL friends. Pretty sure there's no real other connection. Yeah, there you go. Green. Jade and Greenie are connected by the color green. So their progenitor is Kermit. Oh God, Ghoulie, do you remember that coworker you had that could sound or that looked like Kermit? That was hilarious when they get freaked out and like overwhelmed. Go running around like Kermit. Yeah, Kermit. Kirby. Our pronouns are frog. Yes, the siblings that look like Muppets. Frog and Frogette. Yes, you can. It's actually rather disturbing. And see, this is why I keep telling you should get into voice acting. Well, to be fair, Green Jeans also beats the crap out of your NPCs too, Jade, so it all works out. Just saying. Yeah, that depends on who's controlling him at the time. Because, I mean, if you look at it, Kermit's quite the capitalist, so I don't think he reads the Communism Manifesto for, oh, how do I put this? Inspiration. Let's be honest with that. Kermit is very capitalist minded. In the back, I mean, if you ever watch The Muppet Show. Yeah. But I don't know. I think there's a lot that is strange about video game manifestos. Skeeter. My brother could sound like Skeeter and Scooter. And Miss Piggy, which, realizing that he's 8 years older than me, is hilarious. I don't know. I mean, at least when we were kids, he could do it. And even up into his 30s. Protest. Hurt to hurt to hurt to hurt. Hurt to hurt to hurt to hurt to hurt to hurt to hurt. Swedish Chef happens to be one of my favorites. That and Gonzo. Love Gonzo. I'm still mad that they replaced Gonzo with Elmo. Animal. Yeah, Animal's my favorite. One of my favorites too. That's right. And Rolf. Okay, I just like the Muppets. Let's be honest. They're all cool. I wish they would like take them back. Oh yeah, the hecklers. I wish they'd take them back to when that was funny. If I'm thinking of the right thing, I know I've seen various different Muppet things. I don't know. There's just a lot going on, and I think it's funny with the Muppets. They're awesome, but I don't like what they've done with them recently. And I guess now they're owned by Disney, so even worse. Or something like that. Are they owned by Disney? Or are they just like licensed to Disney? I don't know. I am so tired of Disney. Ew. Well, that's just because the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion went over like a lead brick. Most people didn't watch it, because they're just trying to make movies off of their rides rather than making just movies. I mean, like, yeah, you had a one-off really good story. Wow. Well, it's just like Looney Tunes got sold to somebody, and now like Warner Brothers is possibly being bought by the same company that bought Paramount. No Poop Productions or canon in my mind. What is No Poop Productions? Or, sorry, my brain was thinking that you were naming a friggin' like somebody that, parodied the Muppets or something, and it was called No Poop. Yeah, don't mind me. I get it now. I read it through again. Yes, it wouldn't surprise me this day and age that there is actually a production company called No Poop. I mean, come on, let's be honest. No Poop Productions. Okay, yeah, see, I was pretty sure Disney bought the Muppets, and I think that Disney needs to basically go back to the basics. Because they're getting way too handsy with everybody else's IP or intellectual property when they have no idea how to even do it. Like, they don't even understand how to make a good thing when they have all of this information, all of this stuff to work from, and they keep turning out crap. In my personal opinion. Well, yeah. I mean, back to the Disney Renaissance of the mid-90s. They did so good things with, Lion King, with Little Mermaid, with all of what they were doing back then. Oh my God. Treasure Planet and Meet the Robinsons are grossly underrated. Yeah, IPP. But yeah, Treasure Planet. If you have not watched Treasure Planet, go back and watch it. It is brilliant. Same with Meet the Robinsons. Like, those two were such good stories. I didn't mind when my kids wanted to rewatch them. Well, unless it was in the same day. I mean, I still love the music from Treasure Planet. Yeah. Oh, that's right. The majority of what was left of the Muppets and Sesame Street are going to YouTube. That's going to be cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was some damn good stuff. Oh, yeah. That, I mean, to be honest, that was one of Ghoulies' favorites, if I remember correctly. Yes, Atlantis, I think, came out in that same time frame, which was also another good. The first one was really good. Wasn't real down with the sequels, but the first one was really good. Is it that? Oh, God, it is that time. I'm sorry, guys. Time is running out. Oh, yeah, Bolt. Oh, Beaker. Me, 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 me. Me. Me, 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 me. Brother Bear. That was another good one. Bolt was awesome. I liked Bolt. But yeah, it's about time. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not really sorry. I do like to keep it at a certain time frame. Oh, yeah. Well, of course, Bolt has a very special place in your heart. Okay, bye. Geez, Green Jeans, so quick. But it is 11 o'clock, and, you know, time is time. Yeah, I know. You just, okay, bye. Just out. You all have a good night. And I'll be back Tuesday with Casting of Frank Stone. I know I was supposed to play that tonight, but I wasn't feeling like playing a game and I just wanted to talk. And it seems that worked out really well. So you all have a wonderful night. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And I think I'm going to start signing off with this. Be excellent to each other.